Willie Nelson, the tragic real-life story and secrets. In the world of country music and marijuana advocacy, Willie Nelson is a captivating enigma. Behind the perennial smile and iconic status lies an oxymoron, seamlessly blending two contrasting worlds. With chart-topping hits featuring unexpected collaborations and a seemingly blissful persona, it's easy to overlook the depth of his life struggles. But appearances can be deceiving. Let's delve into the untold tale of Willie Nelson, where joy and sorrow collide. Unveiling the layers of tragedy that have shaped his journey, this is the raw and real story of a legendary performer. American musician, actor, and activist, Willie Hugh Nelson. On April 29, 1933, Willie Nelson was born and brought up by his grandparents, started his first band at the age of 10, and penned his first song at the age of 7. Nelson adopted the moniker and ran with it, releasing an album called Shotgun Willie in 1973. It was a great record that Rolling Stone called flawless, which undoubtedly helped the moniker catch on. Along with the success of Red-Headed Stranger in 1975 and Stardust in 1978, he is one of the most well-known singers in country music. A typical country music star could come to mind as being politically conservative. On the other side, Willie Nelson has his cannabis product line, Willie's Reserve. The red-headed stranger reportedly smoked marijuana on the White House roof back in 1980, according to Esquire. He is well known for supporting gay marriage, environmental causes, and of course, the legalization of a particular plant. He has also written an anti-Trump protest song. In conclusion, it nearly seems as though he would tilt liberal. Despite all of this, Nelson managed to stir up trouble in 2018 when his supporters learned he was endorsing Democratic senatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke. When Nelson welcomed O'Rourke on stage at a concert and even promised to headline a rally for the candidate, conservative country fans were incensed. Soon, many of Nelson's pro-Republican fans began airing their frustration and outrage on social media, saying they could no longer appreciate the performer and even making offers to sell tickets they had purchased to his concerts. Nelson himself responded coolly to the uproar, noting that he has never really tried to hide his support for Democrats. Additionally, he stressed that everyone has the freedom to express their opinions, including himself, and that he has no problem if, for example, Donald Trump's followers like his music. You might be aware that Willie Nelson spent a significant portion of the 1980s and 90s up to his armpits in tax difficulties, if you even have a passing familiarity with his life. According to Forbes, Nelson's protracted financial tribulation began in 1984, when the IRS discovered that he had been utilizing tax shelter investments to claim some sizable deductions, or rather, as the musician claimed, his accounting firm Price Waterhouse. Nelson quickly filed a lawsuit against the accounting company, but the harm had already been done. An enormous tax statement from the IRS, together with a variety of fines and interest charges, along with the second tax bill, plummeted the artist into a financial hole from which even one of the most well-known country performers in the world was unable to escape. Nelson's debt continued to grow because he was unable to make sizable payments over time. Nelson owed the IRS an absurd $32 million at the height of his tax problems, according to Rolling Stone. Willie Nelson's already precarious financial situation collapsed on November 9, 1990. According to Rolling Stone, it was on this day that the IRS decided to stop harassing the artist about his astronomical tax burden. Federal investigators seized pretty much everything the artist owned to clear the score, including his 6 different houses, master tapes, platinum and gold records, clothes, and even wardrobe. His daughter was only able to send his most priceless possession, the cherished guitar he called Trigger, to Maui before the raid. For a while, things became so terrible that Nelson was afraid the taxman would confiscate his door receipts and he wouldn't even dare perform live. Given that Nelson had a ton of friends and fans who were aware of the situation and responded to the auction of his belongings by purchasing a ton of his assets and donating them right back to the artist, Forbes reports that losing his earthly possessions was not as bad for Nelson as it sounds like. Sadly, Nelson has an outstanding debt to the IRS of somewhere around $16.7 million. Thankfully, his attorney eventually succeeded in negotiating a reduction to just $6 million. Unfortunately, Nelson's financial situation remained the same. According to Forbes, the practically bankrupt Nelson still owed $6 million even after the IRS seized his assets and his attorney successfully negotiated the removal of as much of the remaining debt as feasible. Nelson reportedly started appearing in advertisements to pay off the loan. Nelson and the IRS collaborated on a strange fundraising scheme in which Nelson sold a 2-disc set of appropriately gloomy acoustic versions of his songs in an infomercial, with a portion of the proceeds going to the IRS. Nelson even gave the record the title, The IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories, maintaining a sense of humor throughout the situation. Due to a stupid error, Nelson appeared in the commercial wearing a shirt with the incorrect phone number, which resulted in the album selling fewer units than expected, and failing to pay off Nelson's debt. Fortunately, the singer's dispute with the accounting firm that got him into this issue in the first place was settled at about the time for an undisclosed fee, and he started working on several successful projects. Nelson was eventually able to pay the taxman thanks to the cumulative gain over the following few years. Willie Nelson has reportedly been through 3 divorces, and they haven't always been amicable, according to pop culture. According to The Telegraph, his first wife left him due to his problematic drinking and left him with the parting present of tying him up in a sheet and beating him with a broom. Even more infamously, his second wife opened a letter about a child that was Nelson's, but unquestionably not hers, and discovered that he was expecting his 3rd child. Nelson continues to be fairly unapologetic about his several failed marriages. According to his official website, it has been quoted as saying that divorces are costly for a reason. They're worthwhile. Despite this, he doesn't demonize or even really consider his ex-wives to be ex-wives. The redheaded stranger said, "You pick up women and kids along the way and you're accountable for them. You don't throw them away. There are only more spouses. There are no ex-wives." Willie Nelson has encountered police enforcement issues on occasion, as is appropriate for a country musician. However, as Business Insider says, Nelson's specific offenses have been more about, well, exactly what you probably expect Willie Nelson might get jailed for, as opposed to general criminal troublemaking. The redheaded stranger was detained 4 times for drug offenses between 1974 and 2010. Therefore, there are mug shots of him that were taken 36 years apart. Unsurprisingly, marijuana possession appears to be his standard charge, but according to The Boot, the redheaded stranger decided to branch out in 2006 and was apprehended for having 1.5 pounds of marijuana and more than 3 ounces of mushrooms. The 4 other persons on board the bus pulled a Spartacus and each claimed they possessed the drugs, which would have been more than enough evidence to arrest the country star with a distribution crime. In the end, the police only filed a minor charge against each of them. One of Willie Nelson's toughest days was Christmas Day, 1991. Billy, the singer's 33-year-old son and a musician, was discovered dead at his Tennessee home on that day. He reportedly hanged himself with a cord, according to reports. Billy Nelson had been battling alcohol addiction for a while. He had spent time in treatment in 1990 and had been arrested for drunk driving no less than 4 times. Sadly, he didn't get sober and was legally drunk the night he passed away. As of 2019, when Willie Nelson turned 86, he was still actively touring. One thing is tragically certain, however. Old age with life on the road equals all kinds of potential health concerns. It is debatable if this is an example of truly remarkable work ethic or simply a man doing what he loves, as long as humanly possible. One such worry, according to Rolling Stone, happened in August of 2019, when Nelson abruptly postponed the final 30 performances of his tour due to a breathing problem that required medical attention. Nelson's PR shortly confirmed that he'll resume the tour after all, so thankfully, this specific problem is either quickly resolved or judged inconsequential. But this is far from an uncommon occurrence. Since Nelson has been battling emphysema for several years, show cancellations and reschedules have been frequent, as noted by Taste of Country. Willie Nelson has some personal experience with the idea that art is agony. However, his suffering goes beyond the cliched sadness that is typically implied by that particular expression. Instead, carpal tunnel syndrome, a highly physical condition, is the cause. Not ideal if you play the guitar for a living. Nelson's unusually jazzy and avant-garde playing style may have been impacted by carpal tunnel syndrome, just as his idol Django Reinhardt had to develop his unusual approach due to the paralysis of 2 of his fingers. It hasn't stopped the Popa Puff from being ranked as the 77th greatest guitarist of all time, though. And that's all for today's video. We'll be right back soon. Until then, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching.